I never imagined I'd end up here, sitting in this cold place, looking back and seeing the wreckage of what was once my life. My name is Kawi and I was a respected member of the Guarani tribe. Today, I no longer know who I am. Today, I am just an empty man, carrying the weight of the worst decision anyone could make. I betrayed my people. I betrayed my family. I betrayed everything my ancestors built with blood, sweat, and tears. I know you must be wondering, how can someone betray their own tribe, their own people? And I understand your indignation. I truly do, because today, looking back, I also can't fully comprehend how I let greed, ambition, and empty promises of wealth destroy everything I held most dear. But let me tell you from the beginning. Let me show you how a man who had everything, love, respect, family, purpose, lost absolutely everything because he wanted more. Because he thought that money, gold, material possessions were worth more than the roots that sustained him. I was born and raised in the village of Ivipora, which in our language means beautiful land. And beautiful it truly was. We lived in a region surrounded by dense forest, crystal clear rivers where we fished since childhood, and mountains that seemed to embrace our community. There were about 200 of us living there, following the customs of our ancestors, respecting nature, and living in harmony. My father Tupa was the tribe's shaman, a wise, respected man with eyes that seemed to see beyond what was visible. He taught me everything about medicinal plants, about sacred rituals, about how to listen to the voice of the forest. My mother Jochi was a midwife and healer. How many lives she brought into the world with her skillful hands? How many people she saved with her ancestral knowledge? I grew up listening to the stories of the elders around the campfire, stories of bravery, of resilience, of how our people survived so many adversities. I learned to hunt with my uncle Guarachi. I learned to fish with my grandfather Rayoni. I learned to respect every tree, every animal, every drop of water as sacred. When I was 23, I married Oe Manajara. She was the most beautiful woman my eyes had ever seen. Not just on the outside, but on the inside too. She had a heart as big as the sky, always taking care of the village children, always with a smile on her face, always reminding me of what really mattered in life. We had 2 children, Cal, my firstborn, and Ara, my little princess. Seeing those children growing up free, running through the village, playing in the river, learning our language, our customs, it filled me with a joy that no money in the world could buy, but I didn't know that back then. Everything started to change about 5 years ago. I was 32 years old, one of the tribe's young leaders, respected by the elders and admired by the younger ones. I participated in important decisions, helped mediate conflicts, and taught the young people about our traditions. It was an afternoon in October. I remember it like it was yesterday. The sky was orange, the sun setting behind the mountains, when 3 white men appeared at the entrance to the village. They came in a black jeep, kicking up dust on the dirt road that led to our community. My father, as shaman and spiritual leader, went to greet them, along with Chief Yubera Ayara. I was there too, beside them. The men got out of the car wearing formal clothes, completely inappropriate for that place. Suits, ties, polished shoes, they looked like fish out of water. The leader of the group introduced himself. Good afternoon. My name is Ricardo Mendez and I represent the mining company Vale do Oro. These are my partners, Dr. Augusto and engineer Fernando. My father nodded, maintaining the firm and dignified posture he always had. Welcome to the village of Ivipora. What brings you here? Ricardo smiled, a smile that I now recognize as fake, but which at that moment seemed friendly to me. We've come to present a proposal that can change all of your lives. An opportunity for prosperity, development, and wealth. Those words, wealth, prosperity, opportunity, they began to echo in my head in a way I hadn't expected. I didn't know it yet, but that was the seed being planted, the poisonous seed that would grow and destroy everything. In the following days, the men returned several times. They brought maps, documents, presentations. They discovered, according to them, that our land, the land of our ancestors, the land where our dead were buried, the land we had cared for generations, lay atop one of the largest gold reserves in the region. Ricardo gave presentations to the entire assembled tribe. He spoke in that seductive voice, painting a bright future. Imagine brick houses instead of straw huts. Imagine electricity, televisions, refrigerators. Imagine cars, motorcycles, money to buy whatever you want. Imagine your children studying in the best schools in the city, having access to modern hospitals, to everything that civilization can offer. And he continued, "We don't want to take your land. We want to form a partnership. You allow us to exploit the mine, and in return, each family will receive a percentage of the profits. We're talking millions. Millions that can lift you out of poverty." Poverty. That word bothered me. I had never felt poor. I had food, I had shelter, I had family, I had purpose. But the way he spoke made it seem like we were living miserably, when in reality, we were rich in everything that truly mattered. The tribe was divided from the start. My father was completely against it. "Cowie, my son, you need to understand. This land is not ours to sell or trade. We are only temporary guardians. It belongs to our ancestors, to our descendants, to the spirits of the forest. If we allow them to destroy the land in search of gold, we will be destroying our own soul." Chief Yubira Yara thought the same way. This proposal is a trap. They come with sweet words, but behind it lies poison. We've seen this happen with other tribes. They exploit, enrich themselves, destroy everything, and leaving only death and desolation. But there were others in the tribe who were beginning to take an interest. Mainly some young people like me, who sometimes went to the city and saw that different world. Fast cars, shops full of products, restaurants, cinemas, and we would return to the village feeling small, out of place. I started thinking, what if my children could have more opportunities? What if they could study at a university? What if I could give Amana Yara a more comfortable life? Ricardo was clever, very clever. He figured out who in the tribe could be influenced, and he started approaching us individually. I remember the day he called me for a private conversation. It was a Saturday morning. I was returning from fishing when he appeared. "Cowie, can I talk to you for a moment?" I looked around, somewhat suspiciously, but agreed. We walked to an area further away from the village. "Cowie, I see in you a natural leader. You are young, intelligent, and respected. People listen to you. And I realize that you, unlike the older generation, understand that the world is changing, that you can't remain stuck in the past." I didn't say anything, I just listened. And he continued, "I want to make you a special offer. If you help us convince the tribe to accept our project, I guarantee you will be very well rewarded. I'm talking about an initial sum of 200,000 riais, and that's just the beginning. After that, you will receive a monthly percentage while the mine is in operation, 200,000 reais." My heart raced. I had never seen so much money in my entire life. I didn't even really know what one could do with so much money. Think about it, Cowie. With that money, you can build a big house in the city. You can buy a car. You can give your children a first-class education. You can travel, see the world. You can have a life that 99% of indigenous people will never have. I should have said no. I should have sent him away. I should have run to my father and told him everything, but I didn't. Instead, I said, I need to think. And he smiled, that snake-like smile. Of course. Think about it calmly. But also consider that this opportunity won't last forever. We have other areas in mind. If you don't accept, we'll go somewhere else, and you'll stay here, in this poverty, forever. In the following days, I couldn't think of anything else. 200,000 reais, a house in the city, a car, education for my children. It began to consume my thoughts like an unquenchable fire. I looked at our hut, made of straw and wood, and thought, Amana Yara deserves more than this. I looked at my children playing barefoot and thought, they deserve brand-name sneakers, new clothes, toys. I looked at our simple life and, for the first time, it seemed insufficient to me. Amana Yara realized that something was wrong. Cowie, you're acting differently, distant. What's going on? I didn't have the courage to tell the truth. It's nothing, love. I'm just worried about this situation with the mining company. It's a difficult decision for the whole tribe. She held my hand with that gentleness that only she possessed. I trust your father and the chief. They are wise. They know what is best for our people. And I trust you too. I know you will make the right choice. Those words should have strengthened me, But instead, they made me feel guilty, because deep down, I already knew I was leaning towards the wrong side. The tribe began holding almost daily meetings to discuss the proposal. The division became increasingly clear. On one side, the traditionalists, led by my father and the chief, on the other, those we called progressives, who saw the proposal as a chance for change. At one of these meetings, a young man named Iara stood up. How many times are we going to remain stuck in the past? The world out there is moving forward, and we're here, living as if we're still in 1500. Our children deserve more. They deserve opportunities. My father replied calmly but firmly. My young friend, you confuse progress with destruction. True progress is living in harmony with nature, having health, having community, having purpose. What they are offering is not progress, it is the selling of our souls. But Iara's words resonated in the hearts of many young people, and in mine as well. Another elder named Arapua said, I have lived 86 years. I have seen our people survive disease, invasions, and persecution. And we survived because we remained united, because we protected our land, because we did not sell ourselves. The day we allow them to destroy this land, we will destroy ourselves. The discussions grew increasingly heated. Families began fighting amongst themselves. Siblings who had always been close now barely spoke to each other. The mining company's proposal was doing more than just proposing gold extraction, it was extracting our unity. Ricardo contacted me again. This time, he brought documents. Cowie, have you thought about my proposal? I was conflicted, but greed had already sunk its claws into me. I'm still thinking about it. But even if I want to help, I don't know if I can convince most people. My father and the chief are very influential. Ricardo sat down on a rock and lit a cigarette. Cowie, let me be honest with you. We're going to get this gold, with or without the tribe's permission. We have contacts in the government. We have lawyers. We can make your lives very difficult if we want. Or, we can make them very easy and prosperous. The choice is yours. That sounded like a threat, but he quickly softened his tone. But I don't want to go down that road. I genuinely believe we can do this in a way that benefits everyone. And you can be the bridge. The hero who brought prosperity to your people. Hero, he called me a hero. How stupid of me to believe him. Look, I'll raise the offer. 300,000 reais up front, plus a house in the city, already in your name, plus a car, and 5% of the monthly profits from the operation. You'll never have to worry about money again in your life. 300,000, a house, a car, 5% of the profits? My head was spinning. And what exactly do you want me to do? He smiled. Just use your influence, talk to people, show the good side, organize a group that supports the project. And when the final vote comes, make sure we have the necessary votes. What if my father and the chief continued to oppose it? Ricardo shrugged. So they will be a minority. Democracy. Kawe. The majority decides, and you will ensure that the majority is on our side. I should have been stronger. I should have honored my father's teachings. I should have thought about the consequences, but no, I was blinded by greed, deaf to warnings, mute to tell the truth. I extended my hand to Ricardo. Okay, I'll help. He squeezed my hand tightly, and in that grip, I was sealing not a business deal, but a pact with the devil himself. Excellent decision, Cowie. You won't regret it. But I regretted it. Oh, how I regretted it. But I would only discover that later. At that moment, I felt powerful. I felt intelligent. I felt like someone who had taken control of their own destiny. Ricardo handed me an envelope. Here's an advance. 50,000 reais. Consider it a sign of good faith. The rest will come when we get the approval. 50,000 reais. I had never held so much money. The bills felt like they were burning in my hands. One last thing, Cowie. This agreement of ours, it's better if it stays between us for now. You understand, right? If people find out you're being paid, it might look bad. I should have realized that anything that needs to be hidden is because it's wrong. But I agreed. You can leave it to me. It'll stay between us. I arrived home with the envelope hidden under my shirt. Amanijara was preparing dinner. You arrived early today. How are you? Everything's fine. I just took a walk to think. She came closer and kissed me. You still seem worried. Do you want to talk? No, everything is fine. That night, while everyone was asleep, I hid the money in a hole I dug behind our hut, covered with stones. My heart was racing. I was hiding money from my own wife. This should have been a glaring warning sign, but I ignored it. I laid down beside Amanajara, listened to the soft breathing of my sleeping children, and for the first time in many days, felt a tightness in my chest. A small voice inside me screamed, "What are you doing? You're betraying everything you love." But I silenced that voice. I convinced myself, I'm doing this for them, to give them a better life. They'll understand, they'll thank me. How wrong I was. In the following days, I began my work of betrayal. Yes, betrayal, because there is no other word to describe what I did. I started looking for the young people of the tribe, one by one, chatting casually. "So, Iara, what do you think about this mining company's story?" "Wow, Cowie, I think it's a great opportunity. But your father and the chief are so against it that it's difficult to go against them." "But what if the majority of young people are in favor? They would have to listen, wouldn't they? After all, we are the ones who will shape the future of this tribe." And so, I planted seeds of rebellion. Not against enemies, but against our own wise leaders. I spoke with Patira, a young mother. "Patira, don't you want your daughter to have access to a good school, to quality medical treatment? Think about the opportunities that money can bring." And she, worried about her daughter's future, began to consider it. I spoke with Rayoni Jr., my cousin. "Man, we could buy a car, travel, see the world. We wouldn't have to depend on rides to get to the city. We could have our independence." And he, young and dreamy, was beginning to get excited. I was becoming the poison spreading through the veins of my own tribe. My father wasn't stupid. He realized something was going on. One night, he called me, "Cowie, I need to talk to you." We went to the riverbank where we always used to talk when I was a child. The full moon reflected on the water, creating a silvery path. "My son, I see you getting very involved in this mining company issue, and I'm worried." "Dad, I'm just trying to understand all sides of the issue." He shook his head. "No, Cowie, you're doing more than that. You're influencing young people. You're planting ideas. And I need to know why." I couldn't look him in the eyes. "Because I think maybe it's not so bad after all. Maybe it really is an opportunity." My father sighed deeply, and I heard the sadness in his voice. "Cowie, do you remember the story I told you about the golden bird?" I remembered. It was a story he told about a bird that found a tree full of golden fruit. It ate so much that it became too heavy to fly and ended up being captured. I remember, Dad, gold, my son, is like those fruits. It looks beautiful, it looks delicious, but it weighs you down. It prevents you from flying. It holds you back. And worse, it makes you forget that you were born to be free. He placed his hand on my shoulder. "Don't let the glitter of gold blind you to what truly matters. Family, community, tradition, honor, these are the true riches." I should have cried. I should have hugged my father and asked for forgiveness. I should have told him everything. But the poison of greed was already too deep within me. "Dad, with all due respect, but you're from another generation. The world has changed. We need to adapt." I saw the pain in his eyes. It was as if I had plunged a spear into my own father's chest. "Oh, Cowie, I hope you don't learn this lesson the hard way. Because when we learn through suffering, sometimes it's too late to fix things." He walked away, and I stood there alone by the river. But instead of reflecting on his wise words, I just felt annoyed. He doesn't understand, I thought. None of them understand. But they will when they see how we prosper. As the weeks went by, I managed to form a considerable group of supporters. We were about 40 people, mostly young, but also some adults who were tired of the hardships of life in the village. Ricardo was pleased with my work. "Excellent, Cowie, you're a born strategist." With 40 votes guaranteed, and a population of about 150 adults eligible to vote, we're almost there. He handed me more money, another 50,000. "Keep up the good work, 100,000 reais." I had 100,000 reais hidden away. And each time I hid more money, I also hid another piece of my conscience. I started imagining my new life. I was already mentally choosing the model of car I would buy. I was already thinking about which neighborhood in the city would be good to live in. I was already dreaming about new clothes, restaurants, comforts. but every step in that direction was a step further away from who I really was. A week before the final vote, my mother contacted me. Unlike my father, who used wise words, my mother used her heart. My son, I don't know exactly what's happening, but a mother can feel it. She can feel it when her son is getting lost. Mom, I'm fine. She cupped my face in both hands. Cowie, you are my firstborn. I carried you in my womb, I breastfed you, I raised you, I know your heart. And what I'm seeing now isn't you, it's a shadow of you. Tears began to fall from her eyes. Please, my son, before it's too late, come back to us. Come back to who you are. It was the first time my own tears threatened to fall, but I held them back. I held them back along with my stupid pride and my blind greed. Mom, trust me. I know what I'm doing. She hugged me and I felt her body trembling with tears. I hope so, my son. I hope so. The date for the vote was set. It would be on a Friday, a week from then. The entire tribe was divided, tense, nervous, families were fighting. Old friendships were falling apart. And all because of a promise of gold. Ricardo assured me, after the vote, as soon as the results are in, you'll receive the rest of the money, the house and car documents. You're going to be a rich man, Cowie. I should have been happy, but something inside me was restless. Something was wrong. My father looked at me sadly. My mother cried in secret. Amanajara hugged me at night, but I felt a distance between us that had never existed before. But it was too late to turn back, I thought. I had already made a commitment. I had already taken the money. I had already convinced the people. There was no going back, or was there? The question I still couldn't answer was what would be the real price of this betrayal? What would happen when the truth came out? And, more importantly, could I live with the weight of the choice I was making? These answers would come, and they would come in a way I never could have imagined. The 7 days leading up to the vote were the longest and most agonizing of my life. The village was completely divided, and I was largely responsible for that division. Every morning I woke up with a weight on my chest, but I pushed that feeling to the back of my mind, convincing myself that I was doing the right thing. Amanajara sensed my unease. She had always been very sensitive, able to read my emotions even when I tried to hide them. One of those nights while we were lying down, she whispered, Cowie, are you sure everything's all right? You barely sleep, you barely eat, you're always tense, always distant. I ran my hand through her hair, trying to appear calm. It's just the stress of this vote, honey. The responsibility is huge. These are decisions that will affect the whole tribe. And what will your vote be? She asked, looking me directly in the eyes. That question caught me off guard. I hadn't told her my position yet. I hadn't told anyone in my family, actually. They assumed that, being the shaman's son, I would follow the traditional path. I am still evaluating all aspects, I lied. She stepped back a little, studying me, Cowie. We are one, husband and wife. There shouldn't be any secrets between us. Why do I feel like you're hiding something from me? My heart raced. For a moment, I thought about telling her everything. Telling her about the money, about the deal with Ricardo, about how I was being paid to influence the vote. But fear paralyzed me. Fear of losing her, fear of judgment, fear of having to admit what I had become. I'm not hiding anything. Amanajara, you're imagining things. I saw the hurt in her eyes. She knew I was lying, but she didn't insist. She just turned away and remained silent. That silence hurt more than any words could. We spent the night apart even though we were in the same bed. And that was just the first of many distances that would begin to form. The following morning, Ricardo called me on the cell phone he himself had given me weeks before. He said it was to facilitate our communication, but now I understand it was more of a way to keep me under control, always accessible. Cowie, we need to meet today. It's urgent. Did something happen? Let's talk in person. I'll meet you at our usual spot in an hour. The usual spot was a clearing about 3 kilometers from the village, hidden in the forest. It was where we held our secret meetings. More secrets, more lies. I arrived there and found Ricardo accompanied by Dr. Augusto, his partner. They both seemed worried. Cowie, we have a problem, Ricardo began bluntly. My contacts have informed me that Chief Uberiara is orchestrating a strategy to prevent the vote. How can we prevent it? The assembly has already been called. Everyone already knows. Dr. Augusto lit a cigar and spoke in that drawling voice. He is trying to argue that decisions regarding tribal territory must be unanimous, not by majority vote. He is seeking legal support for this. I felt a chill in my stomach. If this succeeded, all my work would have been in vain. And worse, I had already taken 100,000 reais. How would I repay that money? What would I do? Ricardo noticed my desperation and placed his hand on my shoulder. Calm down. We won't let that happen. But we need you to do something. What? You need to confront the chief publicly, question his authority, create a narrative that he's being authoritarian, hindering the tribe's progress out of stubbornness. You have influence, Kawi. People listen to you. Use that. Confront Chief Ubiriara publicly. The man who saw me born, who taught me to track animals in the forest, who blessed my marriage to a Manajara. The idea made me nauseous. I don't know if I can do this, doctor. Augusto exhaled and looked at me coldly. Koe, you've already taken 100,000 reais from us. It's no longer a question of getting it or not. You're in debt. Either you do your part, or we'll have to consider this fraud. And fraud has legal consequences. The threat was clear. I was trapped. I had sold my freedom along with my loyalty. All right, I murmured. I'll do it. Ricardo smiled and handed me a smaller envelope. Great, here's another 20,000 as an extra incentive. And remember, after the vote, you'll be a free and rich man. Just a few more days, Kawi. Just a few more days. I returned to the village feeling dirty. I hid the 20,000 with the rest of the money and prepared for what would be the greatest act of betrayal yet. Publicly confronting the chief, the opportunity arose 2 days later, during a community meeting. Chief Ubiriara had called everyone together to discuss precisely the issue of unanimity versus majority voting. He spoke in that firm, respectable voice he always had. My brothers and sisters, our traditions have always valued unity. Decisions affecting sacred territory have never been made by simple majority, but by consensus. We cannot change that now. At such a crucial moment, that's when I stood up. I felt all eyes turn to me, including my father's, who was standing next to the chief. With all due respect, Chief Ubiriara, but that's not true. A murmur swept through the assembly. No one expected me to confront the chief. Explain yourself, Kawi, he said, remaining calm. I've studied our history. I know that on several occasions, decisions were made by majority vote. The question isn't whether it's a majority or unanimous. The question is that some here don't want to accept that they might be wrong, that they might be hindering everyone's progress because of their attachment to the past. My father stood up, visibly shaken. Kawi, what are you saying? Since when do you question our leaders like that? Father, I respect you. I respect the chief. But respect doesn't mean blindly agreeing. It means having the courage to disagree when we think something is wrong. The chief raised his hand, asking for silence. Kawi has the right to express himself. This is a free assembly. But tell me, young man, what makes you think we're wrong? What makes you believe that selling our land to miners is progress? I was prepared. Ricardo had given me arguments. We're not selling the land, we're forming a partnership. A partnership that will bring resources to our community. Resources for education, health, infrastructure. Our children deserve more than just old stories. They deserve real opportunities. Iara, one of the young people I had influenced, stood up in my support. Koe is right. We young people are tired of seeing our families struggle while the world outside progresses. Other young people began to speak out. I had created a movement, a rebellion against our own wise men. My father looked at me with an expression I'll never forget. It wasn't anger, it was deep disappointment, mixed with sadness. And that look hurt more than any words could. The chief sighed. I see that the division is greater than I imagined. Very well, if the will of the majority is to vote, then we will vote. But, let it be noted, this is not just a vote about a gold mine. It is a vote about who we are as a people. The meeting ended tensely. As people were leaving, my mother approached me, tears in her eyes. What did they do to my son? Where is the Kawi I raised? I couldn't answer. I just lowered my head and left. Amana Jara was waiting for me outside, and for the first time, I saw disappointment in her eyes. So that's it. You're on their side, on the side of those who want to destroy everything we are. Amana Jara, you don't understand. No, Kawi, I think you're the one who doesn't understand. You're so blinded by this promise of money that you can't see what you're doing to our family, to our community. I'm thinking of you, of our children, of giving you a better life. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. We already have a good life, Cowie. We have love, we have health, we have community, but you're destroying all of that, and you don't even realize it. She walked away, taking our children by the hand. Cow, my oldest son, looked at me confused. Dad, why is Mom crying? I didn't know what to answer. That night I slept alone. Amana Yara took the children to sleep at her mother's house. For the first time in years of marriage, we spent a night apart, and the emptiness of that hut without them was a harbinger of the emptiness my life would become. The next 2 days were a blur. I kept mobilizing support, talking to people, securing votes. Ricardo called me constantly, instructing me, manipulating me. I had become a puppet, dancing to whatever strings he pulled. My father tried to talk to me one more time. It was the eve of the election. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and purple. Cowie, tomorrow will be a day that will mark our history, and I need to try one last time to make you see. Dad, please, let's not argue again. I didn't come here to argue, I came to ask you a simple question. He sat down on a rock and invited me to sit next to him. Reluctantly, I sat down. When you look at Cow and Era, what do you see? I see my children. Their future? And what kind of future do you want for them, Cowie? A future with opportunities, with education, with comfort. He nodded slowly. I understand, but answer me this. Do you want them to be rich in money or rich in character? Why not both? Because the two rarely go hand in hand. My son, money has a way of corroding character, especially when it comes from the wrong sources, when it comes from betrayal. That word, betrayal, hearing it from my own father was like being shot in the chest with an arrow. I'm not betraying anyone. No, then tell me, why do you secretly meet with the men from the mining company? Why do you have a cell phone that no one in the family knows about? Why is Amana Yara suffering? Why do you avoid my gaze? My heart raced. He knew, or at least he suspected. Do you think I'm too old to understand things? Kawe, Hama, Shaman, I read energies. I sense when something is wrong. And everything is wrong with you, my son? Tears began to form in my eyes. Dad, I just want our lives to get better. That's a lie, he said, firmly, but not aggressively. You want your life to improve. You want things. You want status. You want to feel like you're more than just a simple Indian, and that ambition is destroying you. He held my hand. There's still time, Cowie. Tomorrow, when you go to vote, you can still make the right choice. You can vote with your conscience, not your greed. You can go back to who you really are. What if the majority votes in favor? What if the bill passes anyway? So, let it pass. But you will not be to blame for this. You will not have betrayed your people. You will not have sold your soul. And you will be able to look at your children without carrying this shame. He stood up and placed his hand on my head, just like he used to do when I was a child. I will always love you, Cowie, no matter what you choose. But know that your choices have consequences, and some consequences haunt us for the rest of our lives. He walked away, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I cried that night. I cried like I hadn't cried since I was a child. But even crying, even feeling the pain, even knowing deep down that my father was right, I didn't have the courage to go back. The money was already with me. I had already made a commitment. I had already burned bridges. How could I go back now? How could I admit I was wrong? Pride, that damned pride, wouldn't let me. The day of the vote dawned. I woke up early, after a restless night. The whole village was in a tense silence. It was as if even the forest knew that something important was about to happen. The voting would take place at 10 o'clock in the morning. In the large central hut, all adults over the age of 18 were entitled to vote. There would be approximately 150 voters. I had calculated that we had at least 45 votes guaranteed in favor. We needed 76 for an absolute majority. It would be close, but Ricardo was confident we could do it. At 9 o'clock, my cell phone rang. It was Ricardo. Today's the day, Cowie. Are you ready? I am great. Remember, you're doing the right thing. And after today, you'll be rewarded as you deserve. The rest of the money, the house, the car, it's all yours. What if we lose? Silence on the other end? Then, we're not going to lose. You secured the votes. I trust you. But what if we lost? That question kept hammering in my head. If we lost, I would have destroyed my relationships, betrayed my family, sold my honor, all for nothing. I arrived at the central hut at 9:40. Many people were already there. I saw my father sitting next to the chief, in the position of honor. I saw my mother with other older women. I saw Amana Jara enter with our children, but she didn't look at me. She sat on the other side of the hut. Chief Ubera Yara stood up when it struck 10 o'clock. My brothers and sisters, we are here to decide the future of our land. Before we vote, I will give the floor to anyone who wishes to speak. Several people spoke. The older ones, for the most part, were against it. They spoke of the importance of preserving the land, of maintaining our traditions, of not trusting the promises of white men. The younger generation, many influenced by me, spoke in favor. They spoke of opportunities, education, progress, and not being stuck in the past. Then it was my turn. I stood up and felt the weight of all eyes on me. I'll be direct. I vote in favor of the mining company's project, and I vote because I believe our children deserve more. They deserve access to the outside world. They deserve to choose the kind of life they want to live. If we want to stay here in the village, great. But if we want to go to the city, study, work, have other experiences, this money will give us that freedom of choice. I sat down. I couldn't look at my father. Other people spoke up. The tension was palpable. And then, the moment of voting arrived. Let's vote openly, the chief declared. Whoever is in favor of the project, raise your hand. I raised my hand. I looked around. I counted. 42 hands raised, fewer than I expected. Whoever disagrees, raise your hand. The rest of the assembly raised their hands. I counted quickly, 56 votes. My heart sank. We had lost. Are there still abstentions? 52 people raised their hands. The chief did the math. 42 in favor, 56 against, 52 abstentions. The mining company's project was rejected by a majority of valid votes. A mixture of relief and outrage swept through the assembly. Those who were against celebrated discreetly. Those who were in favor, including myself, were in shock. We had lost after everything. After all the manipulation, all the lies, all the betrayal, we had lost. I looked at my father. He was looking at me with that same sad expression, but there was also something like relief in his eyes, as if to say, thanks to the spirits, the tribe was saved. But my son is still lost. I left there in a state of shock. I went straight to the forest, away from everyone. I grabbed my cell phone and called Ricardo, my hands trembling. We lost. How could we lose? He shouted from the other side. You guaranteed me the votes. Many people abstained. They voted neither for nor against. And of those who did vote, those against were the majority. I heard Ricardo cursing and breaking things. Then his voice went cold. You owe me 100,000 reais, Cowie, not counting the extra 20,000, 120,000 reais. Either you pay it back, or you're going to have serious problems. I can't give it back. I hid the money, but I'm not giving it back. I heard my own voice say, surprising myself. You paid me to influence people, and that's what I did. It's not my fault if it didn't work, you miserable wretch. You think you can cheat me? You don't know who you're messing with. And you don't know who you're messing with, I replied, with a rage I didn't even know I possessed. I recorded our conversations. Ricardo, I have proof that you tried to bribe members of an indigenous tribe. That's a federal crime. If you come after me, I'll hand everything over to Funai and the federal police. I was lying. I hadn't recorded anything, but he didn't know that. Silence on the other end? Then, you're going to regret this, Cowie. One way or another, you're going to pay. And he hung up. I stayed there alone in the forest, with 120,000 reais hidden, with my family destroyed, with my honor tarnished, with my community divided because of me. We had lost the vote. But I had lost much more. I had lost my father, my mother, my wife, my children, my place in the tribe, my peace of mind. And for what? For nothing. The project wasn't approved. I had betrayed everyone for nothing. Or not for anything. For 120,000 reais? That was the price of my betrayal. That was the value I had placed on my soul. I sat on a rock and cried. I cried until I had no more tears. And when the sun began to set, I knew I needed to go back to the village. I needed to face the consequences. But what I didn't know yet was that the real consequences were only beginning, and that the worst was yet to come. I returned to the village as it was getting dark. The stars were beginning to appear in the sky, and the crescent moon cast a pale light on the path. Each step I took toward the hut I shared with Amanajara seemed heavier than the last. When I arrived, I found the door locked. This had never happened before. Our hut had always been open and welcoming. I pushed the door open slowly and went inside. Amanajara was sitting on the ground, weaving a basket. She didn't even look up at me when I came in. "Where are the children?" I asked. "At my mother's house? To sleep? Why?" Now she looked at me, and what I saw in those eyes frightened me. It wasn't anger, it wasn't sadness. It was emptiness, as if she had given up. "Because I don't want them to see what I need to tell you." I felt a tightness in my chest. "What are you talking about?" She put the basket aside and stood up. "Cowie, I've always loved you, from the day we met, when we were teenagers. I chose you from among all the men in the tribe and neighboring tribes. I built my life by your side. I had your children. I dreamed our dreams together." Amanajara, she raised her hand, asking me to be quiet, "But the man who came home today isn't the man I married. I don't know who you are anymore. And what's worse, I don't think you know either. I'm still me. I still love you. I still love our children. Love without honor is not love. It's a lie in disguise. And I can no longer live a lie." My world began to crumble. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that tomorrow I'm taking the children and moving in with my mother. Definitely we need some time apart. You need to figure out who you are. And I need to figure out if I still want to be married to the person you've become." No, Amanajara, please, we can talk, we can resolve this." She shook her head, and I saw tears streaming down her face silently. "There's nothing to resolve right now, Cowie. You made your choices. I'm making mine and our children. Are you going to take my children away from me? You took yourself away from them first, when you chose money, when you chose lies, when you chose betrayal. You walked away from us before I even took a single step." She grabbed a small bag that was already packed. "I'm sleeping at my mother's house tonight. I'll come back tomorrow to pick up the rest of my things and the children's things." Amanajara, wait. But she had already left, and I was left there, alone in that hut that suddenly seemed enormous and empty. I fell to my knees and cried like a lost boy. I spent that night awake, reliving every moment, every decision, every lie. How had I gotten to this point? How had I destroyed everything that was most important to me? When the sun rose, my eyes were swollen from crying, my head ached, my body was exhausted. But there was no time for rest, because the worst was yet to come. Around 8 in the morning, I heard a commotion outside. Raised voices, people running. I went out to see what was happening. A group was gathering near the chief's hut. I approached and heard someone say, "They're coming back. They brought the police." My blood ran cold. Them, Ricardo and his partners. In fact, minutes later, 2 cars entered the village, the usual black jeep and a police car. Ricardo, Dr. Augusto, the engineer Fernando, and 2 policemen got out. Chief Ubarayara went to greet them, accompanied by my father and other leaders. I stayed a little apart, observing. Ricardo spoke loudly, so that everyone could hear. "Chief, we have come here to officially inform you that we will be suing this tribe for breach of contract and misappropriation." "Breach of contract?" The chief replied calmly. "We never signed any contract with you. Not officially with the tribe. But we made an agreement with one of its members, an agreement that involved substantial payment in exchange for services that were not delivered." My heart raced. He was talking about me, Dr. Augusto opened a folder and took out some papers. "We have here proof of transfers and signed receipts. We paid 120,000 reais to Kawe, son of the shaman Tupa, so that he would influence the vote in our favor. He took the money, but did not deliver the promised votes." A deathly silence fell over the village. All heads turned to me. I felt the weight of hundreds of gazes, gazes of shock, of disappointment, of anger, of disgust. My father looked at me as if he were seeing a stranger. My mother covered her face with her hands, sobbing. Amana Jara, who was nearby with our children, looked at me with an expression I will never forget. It was as if I had died to her at that moment. That's not true, ... I tried to say, but my voice came out weak, without conviction. Ricardo smiled maliciously. Isn't that true? Then, how do you explain this? He pulled photos out of the folder. Photos of me receiving envelopes of money. Photos of our secret meetings in the forest. They had documented everything. We also have audio recordings, Dr. Augusto added, of all the conversations where Cowie accepts the money, promises the votes, and then refuses to return the payment when he didn't fulfill his part of the deal. I was being exposed, completely exposed. There was nowhere left to hide. The chief turned to me. Cowie, is that true? Everyone was waiting for my answer. I could lie. I could try to make up a story. But what for? The evidence was right there. And, more importantly, I was tired of lying. Yes, my voice came out as a whisper. That's true. I heard exclamations of shock and indignation all around. My mother broke down in tears. My father remained motionless like a stone statue. Did you accept money to betray your people? The chief asked, his voice trembling with suppressed emotion. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought the money could help my family. Lies, someone shouted from the crowd. You were only thinking about yourself, about your greed. Others began to shout as well. The situation was getting out of control. The chief raised his hands, asking for silence, order. Let's maintain order. Ricardo seized the moment. As you can see, we were deceived by one of your members. Therefore, we demand the immediate return of the 120,000 reais, plus compensation for moral damages and breach of contract. In total, 200,000 reais. The tribe doesn't have that kind of money, the chief replied. And it wasn't the tribe that made the agreement with you. But Cowie is a member of the tribe, and according to the law, the community is responsible for the actions of its members in negotiations involving tribal territory. It was a lie. They were trying to pressure the whole tribe because of my betrayal, and the worst part, it was working. I saw the desperation on people's faces. How were we going to pay 200,000 reais? That's when my father finally spoke. His voice was different, older, more tired. How much money does Cowie still have? Everyone looked at me again. The first, it's all still here. The 120,000, I haven't spent a penny. Then give it back, my father said simply. Go get that dirty money and return it to those men. But what about the other 80,000 in compensation? Ricardo intervened. I could waive the compensation if the money is returned now, in front of everyone, and if Cowie signs a document admitting to the fraud, it was a public humiliation. It was my complete destruction in the eyes of all my people, but I had no choice. All right, I murmured. I'll go get the money. I walked to my hut, followed by everyone's stares. I went to the back, removed the stones, and dug until I found the plastic bag where all the money was. 120,000 reais that had cost me everything of value in life. I went back with the bag and handed it to Ricardo in front of everyone. He counted the money right there, meticulously. Each bill he counted was like a whip to my soul. It's all here, he confirmed. Dr. Augusto, the document. The lawyer handed me a piece of paper. I skimmed it. It was a confession of fraud, breach of contract, and attempted manipulation. I signed it with trembling hands. Ricardo put the document away with a satisfied smile. It's a pleasure doing business with you. Oh, and, Cowie, you're a terrible traitor. If you're going to betray someone, at least be competent. They turned to leave, but before getting into the car, Ricardo shouted for everyone to hear, just so you know, we're going to get that mine one way or another. We're already negotiating with state authorities to obtain the concession even without the tribe's authorization. You have no power to stop us, but thanks for the money back. And they left, taking the money and leaving destruction behind. The chief turned to me. Cowie, do you have something to say to your people? I looked around. I saw faces I'd known since childhood. People who trusted me, who respected me, and now they looked at me with contempt. I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. I was blinded by greed. You betrayed us all. A voice shouted, "You've divided our community." Another voice accused, "You dishonored your father." Yet another. The chief raised his hands again. Cowie committed a serious crime against the tribe, against our values, against our trust. We need to decide what the consequence will be. My father finally approached. His face was wet with silent tears. "Chief, may I speak?" "Of course, Shaman Tupa." My father took a deep breath. "Cowie is my son. I love him more than my own life. But love cannot be blind to justice. He betrayed the trust of all of us. He accepted money to manipulate our people. He caused division, pain, and suffering." He paused, his voice breaking. "According to our traditions, betrayal of the tribe is punished with exile. And as much as it pains me, I believe this should be the punishment. Exile." The word echoed in my mind. Exile meant being expelled from the tribe, never being able to return, being treated as dead. My mother sobbed loudly. "No, we can't kick our son out." But my father continued, tears now streaming freely. "He is no longer my son. The Cowie I knew is dead. This man here is a stranger using my son's face." Those words hurt more than any physical punishment could. The chief consulted the other elders. After a few minutes, he declared, "Cowie, son of Tupa and Jachi, you are exiled from this tribe indefinitely. You have until sunset today to leave the village. You may not take anything except basic clothing and a little food. All your belongings will remain here. If you return before being formally pardoned by the tribe in assembly, you will be treated as an invader." I was being kicked out, banished, excluded from the only home I knew. I looked at Amanajara one last attempt. "Amanajara, please." She turned her face away, hugging our children. Cow looked at me confused. Ara was crying, not understanding what was happening. "Can you at least let me say goodbye to the children?" The chief looked at Amanajara, who thought for a long moment before shaking her head negatively. "The children don't need any more trauma," she said, her voice cold. "Go away, Cowie, and don't come back." My world completely collapsed at that moment. I had lost everything, absolutely everything. I spent the next few hours packing a small bag with some clothes and a little food that had been given to me. Not many people spoke to me. Most avoided me as if I were a contagious disease. Only one person came to say goodbye. My mother. She appeared at the hut when I was finishing packing my things. "Cowie, Mom," I collapsed into her arms, crying like a child. "Mom, forgive me, forgive me." She hugged me tightly, crying along with me. "I forgive you, my son." A mother always forgives. But forgiveness doesn't erase the consequences. You'll have to live with what you did. I don't know how to live away from here. Away from you all, you will learn, and I hope that in this process, you will rediscover the man you once were. The good man I raised you to be. What if I can't come back? What if they never forgive me? She cupped my face in both hands. "So, you build a new life, but an honest life this time. A life with dignity. Promise me." "I promise, Mom, I promise." She kissed me on the forehead. "Go with the protection of the ancestors. And know that, no matter where you are in my heart." She left, and I finished packing my backpack. As the sun began to touch the horizon, I left the hut for the last time. I walked through the village towards the exit. Some people watched me from afar. Others turned their faces away. Children were pulled inside their houses so they wouldn't see me. I passed by the house where Amanajara and my children were. I stopped for a moment, waiting. I don't know for what. A last look, perhaps. A last word, but nothing. The door remained closed. I arrived at the village entrance where the dirt road began. I looked back one last time. I saw the huts, the smoke from the campfires rising, the surrounding forest, my home, my whole life, and now, nothing. I started walking down the road, each step taking me further away from everything I knew. The sun had completely set, and darkness took over. But the darkness outside was nothing compared to the darkness inside me. I walked all night aimlessly, just drifting away. When day broke, I was on a larger road, a few kilometers from the village. Cars passed occasionally, kicking up dust. I sat on a rock by the roadside, exhausted physically and emotionally. I picked up the small bottle of water I had brought and took a sip. I looked at my hands, the same hands that had accepted dirty money, the same hands that had held my children, the same hands that had everything, and now had nothing. It was there, sitting on that rock, that the full reality of what I had done finally hit me. It hadn't been the vote, it hadn't been the public exposure, it hadn't even been the exile. It was there, alone, with no one to impress, no one to lie to, nothing to gain or lose beyond what I had already lost. It was there that I finally saw the whole truth. I had traded everything of real value for something of no value at all. I had sold love for money I couldn't even spend. I had sold respect for empty promises. I had sold my identity for an illusion of something better, and now he was there with nothing. No family, no community, no purpose, no identity. A car stopped beside me. It was a truck driver. "Hey kid, are you all right? Need a ride?" I looked at him. An older man, his face marked by the sun and the road. "Where are you going?" I asked. "To the city, Snow Paulo. Do you want to go?" Snow Paulo, the big city, the place I had romanticized. The place where the money I had withdrawn from my people could have given me a better life. "Yes," I replied, "I'll go." I got into the truck and we drove off. I looked in the rearview mirror, seeing the direction I had come from getting further and further away. My whole life was fading into the distance. The truck driver tried to talk. "You're an Indian, right? From the village over there?" "I was," I replied. "Now I am nothing." He looked at me curiously but didn't insist. And we continued our journey in silence. I didn't know it yet, but that truck ride was just the beginning. The beginning of a journey that would take me to rock bottom before I could start climbing back up. A journey of redemption. Or of complete destruction. Only time would tell. I arrived in Snow Paulo on a gray July afternoon. The city was everything I had imagined, but also everything I had never nightmared about. Deafening noise. Crowds of people who didn't look at each other. Buildings so tall they blocked the sky. Cars, horns, smoke, concrete. The truck driver dropped me off at a bus station. "Good luck, kid, you're going to need it," and he left. I stayed there, with my backpack on my back, completely lost in the midst of millions of people. The first few days were the hardest. I didn't know anyone. I had no money. I had no documents besides my basic ID. I slept under overpasses, in squares, wherever I could. I tried to find work, but without a fixed address, without references, without experience in urban jobs, it was almost impossible. I managed to get some odd jobs here and there, carrying boxes at a market, cleaning car windows at traffic lights, anything to get a few reais to eat. The city I had romanticized as a place of opportunity revealed itself to be a place of profound loneliness. Surrounded by millions of people, I had never felt so alone. At night, lying on the cardboard that served as my mattress, I would look at the starless sky pollution and city lights hid the man. Remember the nights in the village, the endless sky full of stars? The campfire around which we gathered, the laughter, the stories, the sense of belonging, and she cried. She cried every night. 2 months after arriving in Snow Paulo, I was unrecognizable. I had lost weight, my skin was dirty, my clothes were torn. I started drinking. Cheap cachaca that I could buy with the coins I earned. I drank to forget, to numb the pain. To be able to sleep without nightmares, I met other people on the streets, each with their own story of downfall. A former businessman who lost everything gambling, a woman who fled an abusive marriage, a young addict who was kicked out of his home, all of us lost in a city that promised so much and delivered so little. It was on an October day, almost 3 months after my exile, that I hit rock bottom. I was so drunk I could barely stand. I had earned a few reais, washing cars, and had spent it all on drinks. I was stumbling down the street when I tripped and fell in the middle of the sidewalk. People walked over me, dodging me as if I were trash. And that's what I had become, human trash. I lay there, drunk, dirty, and looked at the gray sky. And for the first time in months, I didn't cry. Because there were no more tears, there was only emptiness. That's when I heard a voice. "Brother, do you need help?" I looked and saw a black man, about 40 years old, extending his hand to me. He was wearing a vest with the logo of some institution. "Leave me here," I murmured. "Let me die. I won't let you. Get up, come with me." He helped me up and took me to a van parked nearby. Inside were other homeless people. He took me to a church shelter. There, they gave me a bath, clean clothes, and a hot meal. The first decent meal in weeks. Then they took me to a bed, a real bed, and I slept. I slept for almost 16 hours straight. When I woke up, the man who had rescued me was sitting in a chair next to me. "You're awake. That's good. My name is Joe. I'm the coordinator of this shelter. Why did you help me?" "Because Jesus helped me when I was where you are, and because everyone deserves a second chance." In the following days, Joe talked to me a lot. He didn't judge me, he just listened. And for the first time since I left the village, I told my whole story to a complete stranger. When I finished, he was silent for a while. Then he said, "Cowie, you made serious mistakes, mistakes that had terrible consequences. But mistakes aren't destiny. You can stay here drowning in guilt and alcohol until you die. Or you can do something with the second chance life is giving you." How? How do I fix what I did? You can't change the past, but you can change the future, yours and maybe others. Joe offered me a place to stay at the shelter in exchange for working there, helping with daily chores in the kitchen, organizing. I accepted. Not because I had many options, but because, for the first time in months, someone was giving me a purpose. I spent the next few months working at the shelter. I stopped drinking. I started taking care of myself again. And, most importantly, I started helping other people. People who were where I had been, at rock bottom. There was a sense of irony in all of this. I, who had sold my people for money, was now living with nothing, but helping others. And for the first time since before the betrayal, I felt human again. It was one morning in January, almost 6 months after my exile, that I received news that would change everything again. I was in the shelter's kitchen when Joe called me. "Cowie, you have a call for me? Nobody knows I'm here? It's from some organization called FUNAI, something about indigenous lands." My heart raced. I answered the phone with trembling hands. "Hello, Cowie. This is Dr. Christina from the regional FUNAI office. We got your contact information through the shelter. We urgently need to speak with you about the Evi Pora village. What happened? Is my family okay?" Physically? Yes. But the situation is serious. The Vale do Ouro Mining Company obtained a court injunction to begin mining in the village area. They claim that the land is not officially demarcated and that they obtained authorization from the state government. They will begin construction in 2 weeks. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Ricardo had done it. He had found a way to get the mine without the tribe's approval. But is that legal? Can they do that? Unfortunately, yes. There are legal loopholes that they are exploiting. The only way to stop them would be with proof of irregularities in the granting process, or proof that there was an attempt at corruption or manipulation. And then I remembered. The recordings. Ricardo had said he had recordings of our conversations, but I also had the cell phone he had given me. I hadn't thrown it away. It was still in my old backpack, stored at the shelter. "Doctor, what if I have proof that they tried to bribe members of the tribe, that they tried to manipulate the vote? That would change everything. It would be a federal crime. The concession would be immediately revoked. Do you have proof of that? I can have it. Can you give me a number so I can call you back in an hour?" She gave me the number and I hung up. I ran to the room where I kept my few belongings and rummaged through my old backpack until I found it. There it was. The cell phone Ricardo had given me. I prayed that it still had battery or that it would work. I managed to borrow a charger and plugged the device in. My heart was racing as I waited. The screen lit up. I went straight to the audio recorder. And there they were, dozens of audio files. Conversations between me and Ricardo, conversations between him and his partners, openly discussing bribery, manipulation, how to circumvent environmental laws, and illegal payments to government officials. It was gold. Gold far more valuable than any metal they could extract from the earth. I called Dr. Christina back. I have them. I have recordings of everything. Compromising conversations, admissions of bribery, manipulation, everything. "Cowie, can you bring those recordings to our office today?" "I can. Where is it?" She gave me the address. I grabbed my cell phone, got a ride with Joe, and went there. I spent the next 4 hours with her and lawyers from FUNAI reviewing all the recordings, giving my testimony, and signing documents. They assured me they would act immediately, and they did. 2 days later, the federal police launched an operation. They arrested Ricardo, Dr. Augusto, Fernando, and 5 others involved in the scheme, including 2 state government employees. The concession was immediately revoked. The Vale do Ouro mining company was fined millions, and the partners would face criminal charges. The news was in all the newspapers. Operation dismantles scheme of illegal exploitation of indigenous lands. I saw it on the TV at the shelter. I wasn't proud, but I had a certain relief. I had helped. I had finally done something right. Dr. Cristina called me a week later. Kawi, the Ivipora village, has been officially saved. The area is being processed for definitive demarcation as indigenous land. They are safe now. I cried when I heard that. I cried with relief, with joy, and with sadness, because I wasn't there to see it. They know that I was the one who handed in the evidence, you know? I officially informed Chief Ubira Yara. He asked me to pass on a message to you. My heart raced. What message? He said. Tell Kawi that one mistake doesn't erase another, but one success begins to balance the scales. The door isn't open yet, but it's no longer locked. He was not forgiven, but there was hope. The following months were a slow rebuilding process. I continued working at the shelter. Joho helped me get my documents in order and enrolled me in a free vocational course. I started studying again, something I hadn't done since elementary school in the village. I also started attending support group meetings for people with alcoholism problems. I needed to face my demons, not run away from them. And for the first time in my life, I started therapy. The social worker at the shelter referred me to a volunteer psychologist. In the sessions, we worked through all my guilt, my shame, my betrayal, my choices. It was painful, very painful, but necessary. A year after my exile, on a summer afternoon, I received a letter. I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was from my mother. With trembling hands, I opened it. My son Koi, I write this letter with a divided heart. Divided between the joy of knowing you are alive and rebuilding your life, and the sadness of your absence. Your decision to hand over the evidence against the mining company saved our land. It saved our people. Everyone here recognizes that. It doesn't erase what you did before, but it shows that the Kawi I raised still exists within you. Your father is still suffering a lot. He doesn't talk about you, but I know he thinks about you every day. I pray every day that one day he will be able to forgive you completely. Amanajara is doing well, the children are growing up. Cow always asks about you. I tell him good stories about the father you used to be. Ara is still too young to understand everything. Amanajara will marry again soon. With Irapu, do you remember him? He's a good man. He'll take good care of the children. I hope you understand. I love you, my son. I will always love you. And I pray that one day you can come home. I don't know when, but I believe that day will come. With all the love of a mother, Jochi reading that letter simultaneously destroyed and rebuilt something within me. Amanajara was going to remarry. My children would have a different father. This was the consequence of my choices. And there was no one to blame but myself. But my mother still loved me. There was still a door open, even if it was narrow. I replied to the letter, and we began a regular correspondence. Once a month, she would write to me telling me about the village, about her family, and I would write telling her about my life, about my work, about my recovery process. 2 years into my exile, on a cold June morning, I received a call. It was my father. I answered, but couldn't speak. I only heard his voice on the other end, the voice I hadn't heard in so long. Kawi, father. I don't know if I can fully forgive you yet. It still hurts a lot. But your mother convinced me to at least talk to you. Tears streamed down my face. Dad, I feel so sorry. So sorry. Not a day goes by that I don't regret it. Regret without change is just self-pity, Kawi. But I see that you're changing, that you're becoming a better man. That gives me hope. We talked for almost an hour. It wasn't a complete reconciliation, but it was a start. 3 years after my exile, I received an official letter from the village. It was a summons for a special assembly. The subject evaluation of the request for the return of Kawi, son of Tupa. My heart raced. Could it be possible? After everything, could we go back? I took a bus to the area. I retraced my steps from 3 years ago, but in the opposite direction. Every kilometer brought me closer to home. I arrived at the village entrance on a sunny afternoon. Everything seemed the same, yet different at the same time. Or perhaps it was I who was different. I went straight to the central hut where the assembly would be held. My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. I went inside. The hut was full. I saw my father and mother sitting in front. I saw Chief Uberiara, older, more stooped, but with the same wise eyes. I saw Amana Yara sitting with Irapu beside her. I saw my children, Cow, now a boy of almost 9, and Ira 7. Cow saw me, and his eyes widened. He whispered something to his mother. Amana Jara looked at me. There was no hatred in her eyes, but there was no love either, just neutrality. And that hurt, but I understood. The chief stood up. Cowie has returned. We are here to decide whether he can permanently return to the tribe, or if his exile continues. People started talking. Some were still hurt, saying that 3 years weren't enough to erase the betrayal. Others acknowledged that I had saved their land by handing over the evidence against the mining company. Still, others said that everyone deserves forgiveness. After everyone had spoken, the chief gave me the floor. Cowie, what do you have to say? I stood up, my legs trembling. I didn't come here to ask for forgiveness. I know what I did is unforgivable to many. I betrayed you. I betrayed our land. I betrayed my family, out of greed, out of ambition, out of weakness. I took a deep breath. These 3 years away were the worst and the best of my life. Worst because I lost everything that mattered. Best because I found myself again. I learned who I am. I learned the value of the things I destroyed. I looked at my children. I learned that no amount of money is worth more than hugging your children every night. I learned that no car is worth more than walking on land you call home. I learned that no big house is worth more than a simple hut full of love. I looked at my father. I learned that honor cannot be bought. Respect is not negotiable. And that betraying who you are for empty promises is the worst form of imprisonment. I looked at the chief. I'm not asking to be welcomed as I was before. I know I've lost that right. I'm only asking for a chance to be part of this community again, even if it's on the margins, even if it takes years to rebuild trust. I want to go home, not for the land, not for the comfort, but because I've learned that home isn't a place. It's where your people are, and you are my people. I sat down. There was total silence. The chief called for a vote. This time it would be secret, with white stones for yes and black stones for no. I waited outside while they voted. Each minute felt like an eternity. Finally, the chief called me back. I looked at the result he was holding. There were 78 votes, 43 in favor of his return, 35 against. My heart skipped a beat. Majority in favor, Cowie. By majority decision, you are authorized to return. But with conditions? What are the conditions? You will go through a 1-year reintegration period. You will not be able to participate in tribal decisions. You will work on assigned community tasks. You will attend regular sessions with the elders to relearn tribal values. After 1 year, we will assess whether you will be fully reintegrated. I accept all the conditions. And so, 3 years after being exiled, I returned home. Not as a hero. Not as the person I once was. But as someone who had fallen and was trying to get back up. The following months were filled with hard work. I would wake up early, work in the communal fields, help build huts, and participate in the collective fishing. I did everything they asked of me without complaining. Gradually, some people started talking to me again. Not many, but a few small gestures, a nod, a good morning. They were crumbs, but for someone who was hungry for connection, they were feasts. My father still kept his distance, but I could see his eyes following me sometimes. My mother came to see me regularly, brought food, and talked to me. The hardest part was seeing my children. Cow recognized me but was shy. Ara barely remembered me. And Amana Yara, she was happy with Irapu. Seeing them together hurt, but I knew she deserved that happiness, a happiness I didn't know how to give her. A year after my return, at the evaluation assembly, the chief announced, Cowie has fulfilled all the requirements of the reintegration period. He has demonstrated commitment, humility, and respect. Therefore, I declare that he is fully reintegrated into the tribe with all rights and duties. There was no party, there was no celebration, but there was something better. There was acceptance. That night, my father came looking for me. For the first time in 4 years, he hugged me. "Welcome back," my son and I cried. I cried for years of pain, of regret, of redemption. Today, 5 years after my betrayal, I am here telling this story. Not to glorify myself, not to ask for pity, but to teach. I still carry the scars. Amanajara and I are friendly, but we've never been the same again. My children call me father, but Irupo is the one raising them, and I accept that. It's the consequence of my choices. But I learned lessons that many never learn. I learned that true wealth isn't in what you have, but in who you are. It's not in banks, but in hugs. It's not in possessions, but in purpose. I learned that betraying who you are for promises of something better is like trading gold for lead, because there's nothing better than living with integrity. I learned that family isn't perfect, community isn't perfect, life isn't perfect, but those shared imperfections are worth infinitely more than any solitary perfection that money can buy.